Thanks for tuning in to SLCtv, Salt Lake City's government access channel. On this week's episode of Capital City News, we hear from a craft artist who's been participating in the Living Traditions Festival since its beginning 30-plus years ago. And our History Minute is about the 1997 Utah Jazz Playoff. Let's get started with our legislative update and look back.
My recommended budget this year is presented in two parts: our general fund expenses and revenue, and the potential revenue from the tax proposal. These potential funds have been allocated in the identified critical needs areas of transit, affordable housing, roadway improvements, and neighborhood safety. In closing, I want to say thank you to the Streets Division for hosting us today. My hope is in the future years, you will be too busy to host an event like this. Thank you all again for coming today. Thank you to the council for their consideration of my budget recommendations. Thank you, everyone.
How she never gave up on what she was doing, because if you lived in Hampton, Virginia and you were a black woman, lots of people probably would have gave up, but she didn't. She went through all of the challenges and struggles and actually became someone amazing. I think it teaches me that you can be whatever you want as long as you work hard and never give up on yourself.
After finding out that this is the first school being named after an African-American woman in Utah, I have hope in our future generations that their eyes are actually open to the world around us. Their eyes are open to the background that we have as African-Americans as a whole, as a community, that even though out of my grandma going through that in a segregated time, that she still came out, and that now it's showing our community and it's showing our youth that even though we might be going through hard times as a community or as a country, you still have to have hope. You still have to have a goal and somewhere to go.
What an incredible honor it is for Salt Lake City, for our entire community. As we dedicate this place of learning, we must remember it is our responsibility to live up to Mary W. Jackson's legacy.
Salt Lake City's Living Traditions Festival celebrates diverse cultures and stories within our community. Dianne Moffatt shares her story of being Armenian American and using art to preserve her culture at Living Traditions.
We use it's called a Turkish Georgian rug knot. You take two strings. A lot of people look at it and they say, well, that's just like latch hook. And it really is kind of like that. Only with latch hook, they're working on a canvas that is already made for them. And with this, I have to make the rest of the grid. So it is kind of like latch hook and not kind of like latch hook at the same time. I've always felt a strong pull from my Armenian ancestors, and then this was their vocation it became a hobby from my grandfather on down to me. But every year I think about being linked back up to the ancestors that actually did this for a living. These are my great grandparents on my Armenian side, and he was the rug maker. Then this is my grandfather. He was invited to demonstrate rug making at the first Living Traditions Festival, but he was pretty old. He was 89, I think, at the time, and he had come here when he was just 5 years old. So for my grandpa, it wasn't ever like his vocation. It was just a hobby, and he passed that down to my dad. Here's a couple of pictures of my dad teaching me. I used to be cute, right? Dad did the Living Traditions for about 10 minutes, and then he said, you have to come and answer the questions. So he brought me in to be the one, because everybody wants to know, how long does it take? How much are they? You know, the same sort of thing. So Dad he always loved to work on the rugs, never wanted to interact with the people very much. I just love being connected in with feeling like I'm part of something that's come from ancient times. You know, they've been making rugs this way since before history, really. I think, you know, it's very satisfying to me, and it's kind of, you know, it's a tie back to your roots, but you don't have to be stuck just with that pattern. You know, I'm not sure how they do it. Rugs are made just this way still in the Middle East that are for sale. Mostly the workers are mostly children and women who are working for their food. You know, and when people see me demonstrating, they're like, oh, you know, I really didn't pay enough for that rug that I bought in Afghanistan or wherever, because once they see what's in it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's a sad part of history, really, but it's wonderful that the art is still made, but it needs to be considered art rather than just home furnishing. My family's been involved in the Living Traditions Festival since the very first one. My grandfather, then my father, and me. And it's just the most wonderful festival that brings together different groups that you might not otherwise know or even have heard of. They bring people in from all over the planet that have somehow ended up in Utah with their artwork. And I just absolutely love to be part of that.
And now it's time for our History Minute.
The 1996-97 season started out slow for the Utah Jazz. They got off to an unremarkable start, winning 2 games and losing 2 more. But soon they went into overdrive, winning an astounding 15 games in a row, led by the legendary duo of John Stockton and Karl Malone. By the end of the regular season, they posted their best record in the franchise's history with 64 wins and only 18 losses. Heading into the playoffs, they were still on fire, sweeping the Los Angeles Clippers and giving up only 1 game to the Lakers before the Houston Rockets came to town for the Western Conference Finals. The Jazz took the first 2 home games of the series with the seeming ease that marked their record-breaking season, but then the Rockets came back, stealing the next 2 games on their home court. The pattern continued with the Jazz taking Game 5 at home before heading back to Houston for Game 6 in this increasingly tense matchup. If the Jazz won, they'd advance to the finals for the first time in their history, though they had yet to win a single game in Houston. And then, with the game tied at 100, and with 2 seconds left on the clock, John Stockton did the impossible.
Stock for 3! Stock! Got it! Unbelievable! John Stockton! John Stockton! It's over! The Jazz win it! Utah goes to Chicago! Stockton hits the 3! It's over! The Jazz are coming to Chicago! They've won the West!
Thanks for watching another episode of Capital City News. There are a ton of events happening in Salt Lake City. This May is Bike Month, and we encourage you to hop on a bike and check out, cruise the city, see what's around. Living Traditions is also happening in May, and then we go to our Pride Festival and the Utah Arts Festival. There's a ton of events happening. Follow us on SLCgov, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. and learn more at nextdoor.com. Thanks for watching. For SLC TV, I'm Poonam Kumar.